Hello, everyone. We are super excited that you joined us today, and it's very strange for us to actually have you turn your videos off, but since we are Zooming this live onto Facebook, we need to make sure all your pictures aren't also showing up on there, so we appreciate you doing that for right now. We're very sad that we're actually not seeing your faces, whether it was virtually or in person. But we are excited to be able to offer you the showcase virtually as we kick this whole thing off. So with that, I'm going to get started. And before I do that, I just want to take a few minutes to thank our sponsors. These sponsors have been committed to the life course framework, tools, the showcase, and the life course nexus. And so they continue to support us even though we are still hosting a virtual conference. So Aetna is our platinum sponsor, and Therap and Sonderbloom are our silver level sponsors, and IPMG and Quillo are our blue level sponsors. And so we really thank them for our support. And again, it's not just the support of our events, but they have committed organizationally to understanding and integrating Charting the Life course and the work that they do. So they really are much more than sponsors. They really are true partners. And for that, we are grateful for that. So we're going to spend the next hour and 15 minutes kind of doing a number of different things. One of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to take you through the journey of Charting the Life course and really help you understand what it is, how we got to where we were, where we are, and where we're really heading. And so we're really excited about that. We also are going to, just like this would be a kickoff in person, I'm going to kind of give you an overview of what our virtual showcase will look like for the next month, our next couple of months, all the way till November. And we will be doing an award at each of our monthly live showcase events. And so I'm really excited about those awards because many of you will not have any idea who, you might be one of those people that we're giving those awards to. So with that, I'm gonna remind you who I am. I even said to the team, I said, I will forget to say who I am. So I'm Shelley Reynolds, and I'm the director of the Life Course Nexus. And I've had the privilege for the last 10 to 15 years to work alongside many of you that are on this call before Life Course and during Life Course and hopefully into the future. And I work here at the University of Missouri Kansas City Institute for Human Development, which is a university center on excellence in developmental disabilities. And you know, our work started specific to developmental disabilities, but has grown much beyond that. And so it's really exciting for me to be a part of this effort as well. So what is Charting the Life course? So I'm assuming many of you that are here have heard of it before and know a little bit about it. Some of you might be kind of new to it and trying to figure out, what is this all about? And you know, for me, if I had to like quickly articulate for you what Charting the Life course is, it's a framework. For me, it's an organizational framework that drives transformational change. It's a set of icons, and it's a language for engaging others. I've had many people say to me, boy, it really validates for me and helps me articulate things that I've always tried to express. It's a language that's inclusive. It's inclusive of being able to talk to the people that we support, being able to talk to legislators and systems change agents. And so it's a way for us to really create inclusion and engage everybody. It also is a set of tools and strategies for really enhancing practices. So some people might say, well, I use the framework, and another person might say, well, I use the tools. And so it's a tools with behind them are evidence-based and promising practices for really implementing Life Course into practice across many different systems and in many different situations. But Life Course also is a network. You know, some people say, I really feel more connected to the person-centered or the disability movement because there's many like-minded people that connect to the life course. And so for us, when we say life course, we're really meaning all of you. We're really meaning this place to come and learn and share as we continue to refine and define and figure out what this really looks like. Everything that we do is driven by our core belief. We believe that all people and their families have the right to live, love, learn, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. Everything we do goes back to that core belief. And so to be able to think about every principle or our key set of tools that we have, it's really, really important to think about that core belief. Behind that core belief, though, are a set of guiding principles. And, you know, I'm going to kind of take you down our timeline where you'll see where these principles came from. They came from work through family to family. They came through work of the National Community of Practice and supporting families. And so there's many things that really have evolved into what we now are talking about today. One of the core principles, though, is the fact that we focus on all people. And this really came about because we really wanted people to realize that the more we start focusing on people with developmental disabilities or any other population, whether it's aging, whether it's a population based on culture, is that everybody is included in the work that we do as we really think about that transformation. We want to make sure that our tools and our strategies and all of our policies really help us look at all people. It came about, though, because what we started to realize is that sometimes as researchers or systems change agents, we have a tendency to focus only on what our program, who our program is currently reaching. And when we first started doing this, we really looked at who does the state developmental disability service system reach? And we started to recognize that we couldn't have a framework that was only for people that were eligible for government supports. We need a framework that was really for all people in the United States and really anywhere. And so for us, we constantly focus on that concept of all, and that's thread throughout all of the work that we do. The other thing that we think is really, really important is that each one of us has our own sort of set of values, beliefs, our own culture. We are our own person, and each one of us should have the right to self-determination and to really have inclusion and integration and all of the things that we're afforded. However, we also are connected to our families. Sometimes they're biological, sometimes they're friends and neighbors or people that have become families. And so we recognize that how can we create a framework that not only supports that person, but also recognizes them within the context of their family. And at times, those families also need support. So how are we making sure that that is at the forefront? We talk about the trajectory a lot, the trajectory of life experiences across the lifespan. And that principle really helps us remember, how are we thinking about the things that have happened in the past? How are we thinking about the vision for our future and what we're wanting to achieve? And how are we setting our goals for right now? And so that constant reminder of that sort of trajectory, that we can't just be responsive to the moment, but we really need to be thinking about all of the things that make up who we are. But we also know it's the life experiences that give people the life that they want. It's the ability to interact with others, develop friendships, have chores, get a job, do things out in the community. Those life experiences bring us meaning and joy in our life. And how can we really elevate life experiences when we're talking about supporting a person, supporting them across their entire lifespan? We also know that we need to focus on achieving life outcomes, and that that life outcomes of social capital and economic sufficiency, community inclusion, and self-determination are what's going to help us achieve that core belief that we have. And so how are we moving everything in the direction of those outcomes for people? We do this by organizing those outcomes around what we call the life domains. And those life domains are a way for us to really dig in and understand what is it we want for where we want to live and how we want to get around our communities, our daily life, or employment, or health and living, but also our social and spiritual. A lot of times people leave out the concept of social and spiritual, or the concepts around sort of health and safety, being safe in our neighborhood, speaking up for ourselves. So all of these things around self-determination, self-advocacy, and self-leadership are the way that we organize around these life domains. What you'll see here is that these life domains might look familiar to you, but they are new in the year 2020 in that we have made them more accessible in the sense that the colors are more accessible. We hope that the icons are more reflective of helping you to understand what that domain is about. And so that's just one of the many things I'm going to point out for you. Our other key principle is that every single one of us has needs. Regarding long-term things, short-term things, whether I always tell people, whether I'm buying a car, whether I'm making a decision about where I want to go to school, or if I'm making a decision about how to support a person. And so when we start thinking about those needs, we started to organize them around 3 buckets to give people that visual to really remember. That green bucket is really our goods and services. And that's a lot of times where people automatically gravitate. It's easier, it's more practical, it's more hands-on. You can kind of see that. But oftentimes we find ourselves only focusing on that. And so the idea is that we need to fill all 3 buckets for ourselves and for the people that we're helping to support. So the other 2 buckets are, do they have the information and the skills that they need to have the life that they want? Do they have those skills to, and access to be able to navigate the services that they need? But our second bucket is really about our emotional supports. Are we connected? Are we engaging with others? Do we want to, I always say, get out of bed in the morning? And it's those 3 areas of needs that we really need to focus on when we're looking at really supporting a person. The STAR. The STAR has become really central to the life course framework. And, I love having conversations with people around the country about the many different ways that they think about and utilize the STAR and really see how it's driving and changing conversations. To be able to put your 5 fingers up and to be able to say, not only do I need to think about what this person needs and the strengths and assets they're bringing to the table, but who's in their life? What types of relationships are important to them, and how can we really leverage those relationships and build more relationships? But technology, how are we using technology for our day-to-day lives? How are we thinking about low-tech and high-tech type of adaptations that will get us to the dreams and the goals that we have in our life? But the blue part is related to our community and anything anybody can access. Are we accessing the things in our community that are available to all community members? And lastly, that green part is what type of government eligibility supports might be available that can enhance or fill the gaps to really connect together to create the life that they want. And so as we really, really push ourselves to think about integrated supports for people with all types of support needs, we need to recognize that we need all 5 areas in our life and to really figure out the ways to kind of balance that. Our last principle, and I'll tell you, sometimes I move this up to the front, is one of the most important principles, is that every single person has a voice. They need to have a voice in their own life. They need to have a voice to be able to advocate for what they want, whether it's in their planning meetings, going to the doctor, whether it's out in the community. Everybody's voice needs to be recognized and valued. And sometimes they need to be supported to have that voice. But not only should they have a voice in their own lives, but how are we really, really listening to people to help us really drive organizational change? If you're working on a new practice, you're working on systems change, you can't do that unless you allow the people whose lives are the most impacted by your programs to lead that change. And so those principles are the principles that we're constantly using as the lens as we think about everything that we do, whether we're developing a new tool, whether we're doing organizational change, whether we're helping to write a new waiver or a new ISP, individualized support planning process. Those principles challenge us ourselves to say, are we doing these things? Are we leaving anything out as we're working on that transformation? But what's been really exciting, what's starting to really happen, and I think what creates this sort of uniqueness for Life Course when we think about it is, in order to really empower every single voice at the table, what are the set of tools that can assist them to do that? And so many of you are familiar with our original tools that we're now calling our person-centered tools. These are tools to really help that person explore and discover and have a voice to really change their life or to advocate for what they want. That's what we call our foundational tools. But what we also have is a whole set of tools that are, I would say, kind of mirror the person-centered tools, but we call them our family perspective tools. And you'll see that color purple. That color purple on our tools and on our website represent a set of tools that says, families, your voice is valued. We want your voice heard, but we also want you to know that your voice isn't always the voice of that person. Your voice is there as the perspective, speaking on behalf of that person or on behalf of what you believe is best for that individual. And what that starts doing is it enables you to sit down with a family member and be able to really ask them to articulate what do they believe is the best and the goals that this person needs. And you're able to do it in a way that really values their voice. But at the same time, you can develop a person-centered strategy where you really are talking to that individual or really figuring out their form of communication and being able to articulate their dreams in that way. But also, how do we value the voice of the professionals and the support members of that team? Whether it's a direct support professional, an early childhood educator, a teacher, a support coordinator. The set of tools that they would use to help facilitate those meetings and those discussions may be different than those other foundational tools. So as we start developing more and more what we're calling life domain kits, we hope to be able to have different tools to really represent and bring out the voice of all of the members that would be sitting around that table. We also work on transformation at all levels. And, if you know me, I'm constantly challenging you to say to me, you tell me you like Life Course. Why? Help us understand that. What are you seeing as what is different about a person's life? Because that's the most important thing that we're doing. We can transform organizations, we can change our practices, but we ultimately have to see the impact on the day-to-day person's life. And so what I'm hearing from people is, wow, it gave me new possibilities that I hadn't thought about before. It helped me to articulate and share my ideas, my hopes, and my fears. For some people, it helps them set higher expectations for themselves or the people they support on their team, or for parents or family members. For others, it gave them hope to navigate for the future. For others, it gave them someone said the paper courage to advocate for their vision. While others that said it helped them organize, problem solve, and plan. And every one of those things over there on the left-hand side, those outcomes that we're seeing across the country, they're happening at every level. Individuals are saying that it's helping them do those things in their own lives. Family members are saying it's helping them think through a person that might need supports. Professionals are saying, wow, when I sit around with peers on my team and my organizations, we're seeing new possibilities. We're navigating new services and supports. Organizational leaders are seeing it in their culture of their organizations. Systems change agents are really seeing the way that we provide service delivery and quality assurance changing. But we have community members also saying, this is relevant to my life. I'm now able to join in this conversation, or I'm able to see how many of these things are impacted in my own life day to day. But this journey is continuous, right? And so for those of you that are fairly new to this journey and you're saying to yourselves, well, why don't they have this yet? And why aren't they doing this? Or, boy, this is really cool. Can we do these new things? Everything about the Journey of Life course is driven by you. And so I wanted to take you kind of down that path a little bit so you can see how things have evolved over the years. There's many things on this slide. I'm not going to go through all of it. And I was just going to highlight some of them, but I didn't want to take out the other ones because every step of the way, there's been learning and sharing throughout the whole process. And we're not done. So in the beginning, it was stakeholders in Missouri in what's called our Missouri Family to Family Resource Center. It's housed at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and it's funded by our State Developmental Disabilities Council and our Division of Developmental Disability Services. There's been a commitment for the last 30 years that families in Missouri need information and peer support. And so those partners have committed to that resource center. We've sat out on a journey 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, talking to those stakeholders saying, what types of information do people and their families need to have the life that they want? And we gathered that information and we started to organize that information. And we said, thanks, that will help us develop better training tools, that will help us develop better products. And our stakeholders said, no, the way you organize that's helpful. It really helps us to really think about the whole lifespan. And so that stakeholders group still meets today. It's a group of people that continue to really drive and provide suggestions and ideas and excitement on how we can get better and continue to do things. We also, at that same time, were involved in some national initiatives. There was a national agenda on family support of a bunch of self-advocates and family leaders that came together. And in that, we really started to work with a lot of national partners. And through that experience, teamed up with the National Association for State Directors of Developmental Disability Services, or shortened to be NASDs, to form the National Community of Practice for Supporting Families. Again, driven by you, driven by leaders in every different level of service change, saying we want to join a group of people to figure out how to create supports that not only are person-centered, but support the family. And so in 2012 is really when the community of practice joined with the Missouri Family to Family to start having these conversations. So in 2013, Missouri started to host what we call life course and action work groups. That's part of the structure we still use today across the country to help people around the state or local area or the country. We also partnered with many different organizations in the state of Missouri who said we could use this to really enhance support coordination. And so Progressive Community Services is one of the first ones that came out in that forefront and said, we think that these tools not only will help families, but how do we help our staff use them with families? In 2015, National Arch recognized that the respite tools, if we could take the life course tools and apply it to respite and create a set of respite tools and guides, that people would be able to dig in and problem solve and explore meeting the needs of respite for caregivers. We also did that related to healthy living in 2015. So throughout this whole time, people come to us with many different ideas saying, how can we do this? And we'd say, here, we can do this. When all this was happening, we didn't have the life course nexus. There wasn't a center. There wasn't a place that people could call and say, we really want to do this. But all of these different activities were happening around the country. So moving to 2016, what started to happen? The original community of practice was funded by the Administration for Community Living. State DD agencies and leaders said, we want to continue that community of practice. We think that's a great space for us to continue to learn about and think about the life course framework. We think this is a great space for us to really think about the systems and community change to improve our entire state service systems through that lens. And so those state agencies committed to joining and creating what we call our community, the expansion phase, where the Administration for Community Living no longer funded that initiative, but states started to pay a membership to be a part of that. In 2016, the District of Columbia approached us and said, wow, you guys are doing like this training for people in the community of practice. Can you do an ambassador series for our staff of our No Wrong Door? And at that time, we didn't even dream about the ambassador series being anything other than something for the facilitators of the community of practice. Well, now fast forward in 2020, we're hosting open series all the time. As soon as we say there's an open series, the class is full in a couple days. And so the ambassador series really came from the partnership with DC. We had a group from Singapore become interested in charting the life course, and they're implementing it inside their autism programs in Singapore. In 2017, building on the community of practice annual meetings we host with NASDs, we started to have a life course showcase, which became this open sort of invitation to anybody interested in life course. And so although the community of practice continues to meet and is specific to systems change around developmental disabilities and other systems, people needed this other place to come to really learn and expand and to really keep driving the work of the life course framework. And that was the life course showcase, which today is obviously the virtual showcase for that. And as you see, people continue to fund these. We continue to expand and refine the ambassador series. We ran a cohort with the Maryland State DD agencies specific to family leadership. We continue to do that today. The group in Connecticut approached us and said, the Connecticut DD agency partnered with the Connecticut DD Council and funded an educational series for leaders in the state transition and educational department in Connecticut. So we now have an educational series for those that are interested in the educational system, integrating that. In 2018, Kansas, we were so excited. Kansas was our first state beyond Missouri that said, we want a life course statewide chapter. We don't know what that would look like. Can we work with you to help develop that? And so the structure we have now for states and different local organizations that want to be connected to the life course nexus can form a life course chapter. And we're still learning and figuring what that is. But again, driven by you, by the Kansas DD Council. As you see there, we continue to host the showcase each year. In 2019, the No Wrong Door, Administration for Community Living said, this is bigger than DD. How do we take this to all our doors? How do we take it to the behavioral health door, to the aging door, to any of the long-term service system doors? And can we fund an ambassador series to really pilot and understand what this might look like for options counselors and staff of area agencies on aging, independent living centers? And can we also start developing new tip sheets that will really help people be able to do and implement that? In 2019, Boston, the USET out of Boston, ICI, approached us and said, can we research what this looks like if we hosted a training for families on Facebook and introduced them the life course framework? So we started partnering with training organizations. Missouri received a large grant to start looking at the lens of life course for quality assurance. And all the while, there's all this other stuff happening that's not even listed here. Indiana in 2019, because they were a member of the community of practice, really learned about the life course framework and said, boy, this is the way we want to drive our state agency. This is the values and the principles that we want to drive all of our work. Not only do we want to enhance it for our person-centered planning process, but we also want to make sure that our infrastructure is designed through the lens of that. And so they sought out a contractor to really help them rethink all of their waivers. And what does a waiver look like that's aligned with the framework? How does a waiver represent the 3 buckets, the lifespan, the life domain areas? How does the service delivery and the funding look like? So Indiana is really challenging that deep infrastructure to really ensure that that framework is done and sustained. Oregon's doing the same thing through their ISP redesign. And then in 2019, with the Administration for Community Living created the NCAPS project, which is on advancing person-centered practices. They recognize publicly life course as a means of achieving person-centered supports. And so with that, it enables us to be able to work across many states and really help them understand and integrate and learn about life course as a person-centered approach. But where are we at now? In 2020, Indiana said, hey, we want on board, we want a statewide life course network. And so we're figuring that out with them. What does that look like not only for Indiana, but what can it look like for all of us that are connected with the life course network? And what does that mean? In 2020, we have what we call our first life course technology partner. This was a technology entity that recognized that they could enhance their platforms by thinking through the lens of the life course, recognizing that their organization needed to partner with the Life Course Nexus in order to integrate that in a way that could be, one, sustained, that was consistent with the fidelity of the framework, and that would continue the work beyond only their platform. Hopefully all of you have been on our new website. You'll see we launched our new website, and if anybody's done a website before, they should know that it's a growing experience. It's out there, and we are constantly changing and improving it, seeing what we lost when we changed pages. We need to hear from you. Please call us, email us, hit the contact us page and be like, where's this tool? Where is that? We will only get better if we hear from you. We hope you like the new icons. We feel like the life stage icons are much more inclusive of many other diversities and age groups and sizes of people, and you should have seen us figuring that out. You guys helped us decide on those too. You'll see the new tools. There's fillable tools. I think that's what people are the most excited about. And there's those tools that are available that anybody can download from our website. The idea is that anybody can have access to that. But organizationally, there are things that maybe you want to do is to white label some of the stuff, so you can get your logos on there. And so there's many different ways we're figuring that out with you. In 2020, obviously, we're trying to respond to COVID-19, and how can the life course framework and tools help you do that? And here we are. 2020 at our annual meeting that's gone virtual for our showcase. So, we're going to learn a lot throughout this process. Some of the stuff we hope to, continue in all of our showcases in the future. And we do hope that we can get together in person one day where we can continue that sort of celebration and networking that we do. So really quick rundown of that history, but just wanted you to see many of you are driving us to be better, and hopefully then you guys are taking that information. Here's just a glimpse of the new tools if you haven't seen the new tools yet, and just a reminder to go to lifecoursetools.com to check those out and download those. But I also want to kind of take you guys a little bit different path. So we use the phrase Life Course Nexus, and some people are like, well, what is that, and why did you create that? It is really, really important to us that you have a place to go, to learn, to connect with others, to get ideas, to collaborate, to really continue the transformation. So if the nexus word throws you off, it's sort of another way of saying a center. And we call it the nexus because if you define what a nexus is, it's an intersect of coming together. And so what we hope that we can be for you is that place where you can come together, learn from us, help us learn, and connect with your peers. And so, the website is sort of launching that place to help you say, how do I engage either with the tools, the framework, or how do I engage with other people? And that's what the nexus is. over the years, because of this evolution of all these partnerings and all these other projects, there's been confusion of, well, is that the community of practice, or is that IHD and the Institute for Human Development? How is that charting the life course? And so the charting the life course nexus is the entity that is really that central location for that learning around the framework and the tools and the best practices and the research. The community of practice and all these other partnerships are places that are learning and driving and putting that change into practice. We also, when we start thinking about the nexus, we have people that say, I want to learn more. How do I get involved as an individual through my organization or outside of an organization? And so we use words like ambassadors, coaches, national team. But when we start talking about organizations that really think about our network, we start using words like affiliate, partners, and chapters. So I want to kind of define that a little bit more for you, because many of you see where you fit in. The first thing is our life course ambassadors. And, you know, many of you have been around for a lot of this and know that, like, we have struggled with that word. You know, we have champions, we have ambassadors. You know, our field is really kind of pushing us. And much like the framework itself, we want it to be grassroots driven. We don't want it to be top down. And we really want it to be about the value base and not about a set of the tools. And so for us, we try to do everything that we can to really kind of move this away from just being a top down, you have to have this training kind of approach. And so that's very frustrating. It's been very hard. It's been a learning process. But the whole idea is we want to teach you the framework and help you then integrate it into whatever role you have. And so the ambassadors learning opportunity is designed to take you into a deep dive into each of those principles and then allow you the space in a coaching call to say, this is what this means to me. This is what this means to my role in my organization or in my life. And here's some ideas how I might apply that, so that you have the ability to figure out how to integrate it into your day-to-day operations. We have more than 500 ambassadors, and it's growing by the minute. We're launching another series on Monday, another 3 series on Monday, and every time you have about 15 people who are getting their ambassador certificate. All of the people that have gone through the ambassador series are now listed on our website. If you're missing and you should be there, you need to email us, because we're not perfect. And if you see the list that we have over the last 10 years, you'll be happy we even got to that list that we have there. So check that list out. You know, get your name up there. If you're not an ambassador, I hope that you become an ambassador. My team probably didn't know I was going to do this, but I read this book a long time ago. I haven't said this in a couple of years, but it's called New Power. And I bring this up right now because when I think of all of you on this call and I think about ambassadors, I'm really committed to making sure that you have the tools and the knowledge that you need to be what they call in the book New Power, they call super participants. So what is a super participant? Well, super participants they're people that are engaging in the change. And so as much as we need to keep developing best practices to improve the lives of people's day-to-day lives, we also need to make sure that you as the change agents have the tools that you need. So the Ambassador Series sort of unlocks all of this stuff that I would consider super participants might want. It enables you to connect with other people who have gone through the Ambassador Series. We have a new online community for you now. We're going to this year really focus on giving you different webinars and different learning opportunities to connect with one another. We want to start organizing you around specific innovations and practice areas. Many of you said, okay, I know that you've empowered me by going through the Ambassador Series, but I still want more. I still want more access to skill development, and I want to increase my confidence to like run certain things or to be able to train in certain ways. And so we created an Ambassadors Badge Academy, and we hope that the Badge Academy continues to grow and grow. again, driven by you, driven by your needs. So it's not perfect yet, but is there's things that you're like, I wish I had more of, or more information on, or had access to. We hope that that's a place you'll be able to go and get that. So with that, I want to tell you, the state of Kansas has been amazing, and Maryland. They've really, really pushed us and invested in us to figure out what is this Ambassadors Badge Academy. And so Debbie Pfeiffer, Brian Wilson, Marianne, and Chelsea are completing their Ambassadors Foundation Presenters badges. And so they will have that icon along with their ambassadors icon that they will be able to use, put at the bottom of their signature line, or be able to say, I've completed this badge, this foundation presenters badge. So again, this is something new for many of you. It's on our website, but something we're hoping starts giving you what you've been asking for the last couple of years. The other thing is I talked about organizations, and you know, I'm amazed every single year, every single week, every single month with the number and types of organizations that call us. It might be a school, it might be a service provider, it might be a foster care organization, and they say, you know what? We are trying to strategically change our organization. We want to be better as an organization. How can Life Course help us do that? And so for those organizations that want their organization to really think through the lens of the Life Course and how they can use this to transform not only their organizations, their practices, and their procedures, can connect with the Life Course Nexus and become a Life Course affiliate. And so those organizations will have that icon. They'll be able to put that on their websites or wherever they want to use that. But more importantly, they are challenging themselves to really think about how do we take leaders through the Ambassador Series to get the strategic implementation assistance that they need to apply it very specific to their organization. If you go to our website, you'll see the list of the many organizations that have started that and continue to do that good work. The other thing is we have a lot of organizations, again, many of you on the phone right now, that have been a part of our history and that evolution. And so we've started to define that role as a partnership role, because for us, it's not about us. It's not just about the Life Course Nexus, but it's about it's about all of us and those partnerships. And so how can we really, when we develop products or resources, how do we make sure that there's this representation of the work that we're doing jointly and together? And so we have 3 different types of partners. We have what we call our development partner. Again, some of those are listed on our website. These are people that over the course of the last 10 years have said, hey, let's develop this. Or, Oklahoma, the Oklahoma USED and the COP team, and UCLA and DC, and a number of our organizations said, how can we help you create Spanish and Chinese materials for Life Course? So these are people that partner with us as they see the needs and ideas that they have. They contact us and figure out ways to not only get their needs met, but how can that go into the larger sort of clearinghouse of Life Course so all of you have access to it. The other thing, for years we've been saying, wow, we never anticipated the excitement about Life Course. And so how are we ensuring that there's evidence-based practices? How are we ensuring that there's fidelity to implementation strategies? How are we making sure people's lives are better because we're integrating Life Course into any type of practice? And so we need you as research partners. We need you to help us and help you think through, how are we evaluating when you decide to do this? Are we seeing that people not only have better plans, but do they have better lives? Are we seeing people become more empowered in the schools and being able to speak up in their IEP meetings? Are we seeing families see more possibilities after they go through a training? So the list can go on and on and on. But we are here to partner with you as you want to develop research ideas and demonstrations, and we partner in a lot of different ways. And so we've been partnering with the Townsend Center out of Maryland. We've been partnering with ICI Boston. We have lots of types of partnerships that I probably am not even listing right there. The technology partner is a new thing for us, and I'll just tell you what has been an amazing sort of surprise for us is that there are technology companies across the United States and actually in Canada too that are saying, boy, how do we actually take LifeCourse and put it into a virtual platform? How can we use it to actually better our technology product? And for us, this was really new to us. We are a university. We are 100% soft funded. Everything we do in partnership with people so we can get it out to as many people as possible. But our work needs to be sustained. And so the commitment that we have from our partners, our technology partners, is they can build this into their product if they develop a licensing agreement with us, that they are licensed to use the tools and the resources if they've gone through Ambassador Series, if they work closely with us to make sure that they're following the values, not only of how they put it inside their platforms, but are they following the values of ensuring that people are driving their own lives? Are they taking each one of those principles and challenging themselves as an organization? And I've just been absolutely amazed and honored at the companies that are dedicated to that. So TheraP has done that. Sonderbloom is a new company out of Canada that's developing a partnership with us, a platform for families and individuals to use who are self-directing and are wanting to navigate their lives. We're partnering with Quillo, who's really putting together training videos for not only families, but direct support professionals and organizing them using the framework and the tools. So there's lots of different ways that for-profit technology partners can start partnering with the Nexus and understanding that their commitment is not just to access to the icons and tools, but their commitment is how can we help the Nexus ensure that anybody that wants access to the materials can get that access, and the sustainability of that is really important. The other thing that's fairly new is this concept around chapters I mentioned earlier. So the idea that organizations and people in different states, maybe they've gone through the Ambassador Series, maybe they have a community of practice, maybe they don't have a community of practice, maybe there's a group of people in a smaller area of a state that want to come together and share their learning. Maybe it's a group of people that have been hosting tools and action work group meetings. Maybe it's another group of people that have been hosting good life groups. But all the while, they want to stay connected to the national movement of LifeCourse. They want to actually use that to pull people together, but they also want to kind of have a little bit of structure around that. So what we're hoping to really build out this year is this concept around chapters. So what does it mean to be a LifeCourse chapter? Who can do it? How do we, what is the Nexus going to offer to them in terms of, we're going to develop each chapter a website. Lots of people call us and say, I live in Florida and I love this LifeCourse. Who around me can I talk to? So we're hoping it becomes this place that states and organizations and affiliates at a state level can put information so people get back to you in your own state. So Missouri, Kansas, Maryland, and Indiana have been sort of at that forefront of that and have committed to that, but also recognizing we're figuring this out together. None of this is possible without the LifeCourse Nexus team, and and all of you, like I've said. But there are team members that work for the University of Missouri Kansas City, and I always kind of I laugh when I get phone calls from people that are new to Life Course, and they're like, well, why don't you have this? And why don't you have that? And I'm like, well, because there's like 3 or 4 of us. And so when it started out, it really was 3 or 4 of us. And we continue to expand, not only to meet the needs that you guys keep bringing up, but how are we ensuring that we have a diverse team that represents ages and cultures and languages and represents different systems. And so we couldn't do it without the passion and the skills of our team members. So with that, I'm going to actually introduce you to some of the team members.
Hi, everybody. This is Jane St. John, and I am so excited to be here with you today and to talk to you guys. Most of you may know me as Ben's mom. Ben is used as an example in many of our presentations, and so yeah, when I introduce myself, people don't necessarily know the name, but they know Ben's mom. So I've been with the UMKC Institute for Human Development for 18 years. I'll be starting my 19th year soon. I've had a lot of roles in my time there, everything from working with the family to family, parent to parent, but I've really found my home with Charting the Life Course and with Nexus. My role in Charting the Life Course, a lot of it is creating new products and updating existing products, which we've been doing a lot of here lately. So that has been my life for the past several months as we prepare for rolling out the new website. So working on the website as well is something that I do with our wonderful website developer. But I help develop the content that goes on the website and make sure that the tools are updated and all that kind of good stuff. Some of the tools you guys are familiar with, you've seen the star, the trajectory, so many of the tools. And as Shelley said, this only started a couple of years after Charting the Life Course really started. The tools started being developed back in 2014. And it was really because a group of people in Missouri, a group of service coordinators and other professionals came to us and said, we need something. We don't know what it is. Maybe it's a checklist. And we immediately said, nope, we don't do checklists. And so we're like, okay, come and start meeting with us and getting together with us and we'll figure it out, right? And so we started having these monthly meetings and we would bring ideas in and they would bring ideas in, and eventually we started making tools and we would say, okay, go try these and see what you think and what you like about them and then come back and tell us. And that's the process that we follow to develop the tools over time, as well as bringing in our stakeholders group and many other of our trusted partners. But it really started with that group of people that just said, we need something else. We just don't know what it is. And so, you know, anytime that you think of something, if you have new ideas, we're going to say, okay, we'll partner with us, help us figure out what it is that's needed, and then help us develop it. That's just kind of our process. Some other things we've developed over time is educational materials. So many of you know about the Charting the Life Course Experiences booklet, or you probably know it as the Blue Book. We also have the Yellow Book, which is the employment materials. And so, you know, those are things that are going to be updated as well very soon. They're on the website now as is, but we will be redeveloping those, they're re-updating those. Another thing that I work on is training, developing training curriculum, going out and doing training. I see some familiar faces on here. Well, I see your names. And, you know, that I've met when I've gone out and done training and presentations around the country back before COVID when we could actually travel. But I know that, you know, someday we'll be there again. So I'm really excited to meet more of you when we can all be together in person again. As I said, I'm one of the trainers here at the Nexus as well. So kind of like, why would you want to talk to me? Or why would you get in touch with me? So if you can't find a tool, if you're on the website, and I saw somebody earlier on chat's like, I can't find some of the tools. I'm going to be your gal. I'm the one that's going to talk to you. Sometimes it's just because maybe we changed the name, or the old website was not laid out well, and the new one is a completely new kind of map, if you will. So I can help walk you through that, help you find the tools, or we can identify that, okay, this one's missing. It's in the process of being updated, or we need to update it, and we'll figure it out as we go. So if you find things like that, like Shelley was saying, please let us know. So I'm going to be probably the person you're going to talk to about that. If you want to use our materials in a project that you have, or if you have an idea to adapt the tools in a certain way, I'm going to be the one that you're talking to tell you whether you can do that or not, and how you would do that, and how we would work with you to do that. As I said earlier, if you have a great idea, we love to hear new ideas. Somebody on one of our other calls said, hey, are we going to have an education trajectory or portfolio? Gosh, that's a great idea. So that's something we'll probably look at developing down the road. You know, other ideas, we're always open to new ideas because we don't want to become stagnant. We always want to have what people need. If you want a virtual or an in-person someday training, you know, you can talk to me about that as well. My priority areas, a couple of my priority areas, other than charting the life course, and more charting the life course, is supported decision-making, transition, and family support. So those are some of the areas that I specialize in. So what do I love about charting the life course? Gosh, where do I start? There are so many things I love about charting the life course, about the framework, about the tools, about how people interact with it. But it really starts with, I use it in my own life. It really started out with, okay, how can I use this in Ben's life? How can Ben use this to have a good life? And that's been awesome. We use it for planning meetings, to get ready for planning meetings, during planning meetings. I really wish this had been around back when Ben was in school. It would have been so cool for IEP meetings, right? We use it to help hire staff, to train staff, to schedule staff. Most recently, we've used it to cope with what's going on with COVID. You know, when they started closing everything down and Ben started having to stay at home all the time, you know, my concern was, you know, how's he going to stay socially connected? Because he's a very social guy. How's he going to stay socially connected with people when he can't go anywhere and they can't come here? And so what did I do? I got out the trajectory, and I did a trajectory for what we want and what we don't want, what Ben wants, what he doesn't want, and what were some of the ways that we could help him stay connected. I really used that, the strategies I really thought about in terms of the life domains. So, you know, how does he stay healthy? You know, how does he have a good daily life? How does he, you know, stay connected with church and with friends, you know, from his social outings? So really use that to think about, you know, how to continue to have a good life in the face of a crisis. Over time, charting the life course has just become really how I think. You know, I can't do anything without doing a trajectory or a star. I'm sure people probably get tired of me going, well, did you do a trajectory? Or, you know, in the middle of a meeting, I'll be like, hey, can I do something? I'll get up and I'll draw a trajectory, and we'll start, you know, thinking through it. And, you know, I can't do problem solving or even thinking about anything without just, it does, I don't do it on purpose. I click through the star in my head. I just do it. If I haven't mentioned it, I love the website. It was a lot of work, and it was it was interesting. It was challenging, but I love how it's turned out. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. Let us know what you think. Even if you don't love it, tell us why you don't love it, because it can always get better. So, you know, we want to hear from you. Another thing I really love about the framework and tools is that anybody can use it. Anybody, anytime, any age. It doesn't have anything to do with disability. It really doesn't. It started out that way, but I remember the first time that I really realized that this is universal. Shelley and I were presenting to a group of students at Rockhurst University. They were physical therapy students. And we were presenting to them because we thought, well, you know, when they treat kids or adults with disabilities, and, you know, if they can help them think through the things they want to do and how they can help, you know, plan their therapy around those things, that would be great. And in the middle of this presentation, we started seeing light bulbs coming on with these young students. And they were like, oh, well, in the STAR, you know, I have eligibility supports because I fill out the FAFSA and I get student aid. And we're like, holy crap, they're getting it, right? And then they were like, well, we could use this with any patient, you know, when we're getting ready to discharge them from the hospital and making a plan for therapy. It would work for anybody. And it was just like the light bulbs came on for me at that point, that this is universal. Anybody can use this anytime. I love to see how people with disabilities, or anybody and their families, use it. It was in the midst of a really tough time with COVID. It was really refreshing and heartwarming to see how many people in the midst of a crisis, turn to Life Course. You know, I remember Brenda and Derek from South Dakota getting on Facebook Live and talking about the tools and how they were using them and making videos, and many, many other families and professionals were sending us examples of how they were coping with this crisis by turning to Life Course. And that is just, it's so exciting and so encouraging that we're doing what people need. There's so many different ways to use it. Life planning, long-term, short-term, everyday life things like school and work, saving money, buying a house. I think about it for, you know, a few years down the road. I think about what my retirement looks like and how can I start planning that now. Any kind of problem solving, mapping, finding the gaps, all of those things, you know, we've seen and we use ourselves with Life Course. Did I mention I love the website? Just making sure I did that. The last thing I'm going to talk about is I love my team. We all have different strengths. You know, we're a very diverse team. We all have our own lanes, but our lanes interact with each other and intersect, and it's really about that nexus of bringing things together. And so even though we try to stay in our lanes, we also interconnect. It's been great having my team to brainstorm with me, problem solve with me, life coach with me, and really help boost my creativity if I get stuck. I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Turner, it looks like.
Hi guys, Jenny Turner here. So excited to be with all of you virtually. Like Shelly said at the top of the call, we were bummed, of course, that we couldn't all be together in Kansas City, but this is the next best thing, and we appreciate you spending your afternoon with us. I am super excited. I have a title. We all have titles that really, I think, are going to help, like Jane said, help our network know what is our lane. What is it that we really do? Like Jane said, we intersect with one another. We overlap with one another. We work very collaboratively, very closely together. But hopefully these titles, even though they might be a little silly and we probably can't put them on any official paperwork, will help you to understand what we love about what we do and how we want to support you. So mine is strategizer of solutions, and what I really love about that and part of my role with the Life Course Nexus is to think about how are we supporting our super participants? How are we creating training, technical assistance, process consulting, and other avenues for our super participants, you guys on this call, the organizations that you represent, our partners and chapters, to connect with the Nexus, to have the resources and support that they need for implementation. Many of you I've worked with in various capacities, whether it's a training or technical assistance or through the community of practice for supporting families. And oftentimes we say, I'm the so what girl, right? So we think about, we have this great grounding in the framework and we really understand the principles, and we've got these excellent materials that help us to articulate those things. And now what are we going to do about it? And what does that implementation look like? I love strategic thinking. I love problem solving. I lay awake at night and I try to connect dots and put things together and anticipate pitfalls. And so it really is my privilege to get to work with our affiliate organizations and our partners and our chapters to develop strategies that are meaningful for you in your specific context, and then to bring that back to our team for a couple different purposes. One joke around our office is that I don't make things pretty. We just know that that's true. And so thankfully, like Jane said, we all have different skill sets. And so I bring the words and she does the graphics, and then Shelly finesses it even further for us. And so, but also because we want to be that intersect. So we want those, the folks, the affiliates in Florida who are doing amazing, cool, awesome things. We want to carry that forward and have people in Oregon or Alabama or other places be able to do that. So I work specifically on our National Community of Practice for Supporting Families. I get to co-lead that with NASDs, as well as with our National Center on Advancing Person-Centered Practices and Systems, the NCAPS project that Shelly referenced. I work quite a bit with state systems for system change through those two projects. I also work on a couple of other things, as many of us do, wearing lots of different hats. But I think What I really love about my job, like I said, is getting to support our super participants, our affiliates, thinking about how can we continually refine our structure at the Nexus. So I'm strategizing solutions even for us internally, as we recognize that, like Shelly said, we're a small but mighty team, and there's a lot of demand, which we love, and we really value our partnership with all of you. So we're constantly thinking about how can we make this easier, better, and more supportive. Just really quickly, like Jane shared, what she loved about the framework. There's two big hooks for me, two things about Life Course that are super meaningful and I think powerful for me. The first, many of you know, I am a sister of a person who has a disability and receives supports. And so I will never forget the first time that I heard the core belief that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, learn, play, and pursue their life aspirations. And I emphasize and their families because I know that for many of us who have experienced being a family member of someone receiving support in any capacity, sometimes it feels like we're a little bit lost. And sometimes it feels like maybe our good life is secondary. And so I think what Life Course is really bringing to the forefront is thinking about the individual and their family and recognizing that a good life for all means all family members. And how can we develop strategies and supports that really speak to that. I also really love to use the framework for strategic thinking. So like James said, I use it in my personal life, but man, if I can pull it out for a project, that's when I'm the happiest. So you guys know that if I'm with you in person or if we're on a Zoom call, I'm going to pull out some flip chart paper and we're going to draw some really terrible stars because I don't make things pretty. But I believe that really any project, any program development, any discussion, any technical assistance can be done using the framework as strategic thinking tools. And so I enjoy getting to be the person that supports you in that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Meyer to tell you about her role with our team.
Hey, everybody. So excited to be here. I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, what do I say to make this short and sweet? I can tell you I've worn a lot of hats in my career, and I've been in human services for 30 some plus years. Hard to believe that. But of all the different opportunities I've had, I think this is one of my most rewarding. I've done many things too. I've worked with the Office of Medical Assistance, behavioral health, aging, including developmental disabilities, and I've been a direct support professional, a support coordinator, county administrator, worked at state agencies, and again, I think while all those experiences have been very valuable and rewarding, they've also really helped me in my role with the Charting the Life Course team. So some of the things that I do with the Charting the Life Course team are I actually help out with curriculum development. I love facilitating ambassador series and coaching those series. In my newest role, one of the things that I do is help out with bringing brand new coaches on board, and we have what we call coaches in training, and I help facilitate that process. And this is, really in direct response to the overwhelming and ongoing requests that we continue to get from people who want to go through a Charting the Life Course Ambassador Series. The feedback that we have received from support coordinators, case managers, person-centered thinking trainers, mentor trainers, even provider leadership has just been overwhelmingly positive. I've actually been a mentor trainer myself with the learning community for person-centered practices and a plan facilitator for many years. One of the things that really has resonated with me, I think, which is my passion, is Charting the Life Course has really helped me to solidify that discovery learning process of person-centered planning. And it's also provided me with the additional resources that I use to support people in moving forward in their life journey. And that's been really exciting for me. And I'm really looking forward to next steps for myself personally is looking at opportunities to kind of really dig in and sink my teeth into being more intentional and using Charting the Life Course to help with cultural and community awareness and acceptance. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lisa, Jane, and Jenny. And so through each month, you'll be introduced to the different team members that are associated with some of the innovations for that month. So thank you, everybody. But I did want to put the rest of the team up. These are the behind the scenes. Some of them are behind the scenes and some of them are up front. But if we were all at the showcase in person, they'd all be up on stage with me. So we have Julie Reynolds, we have Greg Rose, we have Carol Calhoun, we have Catherine Reagan, we have Georgia Mueller, we have Brian Ramirez, and we have Jenny Hatfield Callan. Unfortunately, Crystal was going to be one of our speakers today, but we will catch up with her on another month. So it's not that she's not on here. And another person that you'll also see is Megan Lamarche, who's part of our team. So just want to thank the team members for all that they can do, and just want everybody to know everybody is working behind the scenes to really try to figure out how to support you. So I want to I have a couple more minutes. I want to open it up to any questions, ideas, reflections you have. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of give you an idea of what we are committed to, what I personally am committed to, but what the Life Course Nexus and UMKC is committed to. And this commitment has not ever changed for me, even as we continue to evolve. And sometimes it's scary becoming more sophisticated and you guys having more demands for us. We are constantly juggling that and trying to figure that out, because the bottom line is this was developed for families and for people with disabilities, and it's become much more than that. It's become a human-centric framework and a set of tools. But bottom line is how do we get this into the hands of any person that wants it for their day-to-day life? And having that access and developing things that we do and putting things on our website and making them available to you is what I'm always committed to. I do not want any barrier to stand in the way of that. So that's my first commitment and ongoing commitment. I say to every single partner when they say, well, I want to do this, and I say, how do we make sure as many people can have access to it from all walks of life? My other commitment is to you guys as super participants, even though you don't know you're our super participant, but anybody that's wanting to learn more about it and wanting to do something with the Life Course framework. I'm committed to continuing to find the best way to support you in your professional development. I'm committed to really figuring out and building a team that can create virtual resources for you, virtual training for you, in-person training for you, and we are constantly adjusting at that. Greg came on board to really ensure that we're providing 21st century learning, and that learning isn't just a head and a screen, but rather it's engaging and learning and coaching with one another. The other thing I'm committed to is the research. We need you. We need you to partner with us. We need you to say, hey, we've got data, we have stuff, but we don't have the researchers. Or if you're a researcher and you say, I have ideas, do you want to write a grant? Do you want to look at stuff together? We absolutely want that. I look at the Life Course Network and team as no walls. You don't have to work for UMKC to be a part of the sort of drivers and leaders and team members that you have on board. The other thing is I'm committed to continuous refinement of the framework. Again, if our focus is on all and ensuring inclusion for everybody to have a good life in all ages of their life, we've got to get better. We have to ensure that our tools, our language, our resources are including all of the diversity of all walks of life. And so it takes all of you to really challenge not only yourselves, but challenge us to say, does this reflect this community? Does this reflect this age group? Does this reflect a person who needs it for this reason? We are all committed to that. The other thing is I'm committed to these values, and the framework and the principles are what drive this. And regardless of the tools that you're using yourself, we are committed to people having good lives and using person-centered concepts to transform service systems and to transform organizations in the medical field and the educational field. And so to me, I just hope that this is a sounding board, and this is a way to engage in a network that drives, it continues that movement of transformation to create inclusive lives for all people. The other thing is that, you know, I'm committed to being responsive to all of the current realities going on in our world. Everyone has had to pivot and respond to what's happening with COVID, and trying to figure out not only how are we supporting our own team and our own organization, but watching you guys respond and create innovations, continue to support people in all types of situations. I'm amazed at how you've fallen back on the tools to continue to do that. So our learning from you as we respond to the context of pandemics, and COVID, and the other healthcare situations is absolutely just been amazing. And we're committed to trying to come up with solutions for whatever that context is. We also condemn the murder of George Floyd and the many Black lives lost. And we stand with others that are really committed to evolving and trying to change the institutional bias and racism in our country. And we understand and hope that the Life Course Nexus will continue to provide places that as a network we can have hard conversations and challenge ourselves, look internally, and humbly say to ourselves, we haven't done this well. We haven't been as inclusive as we should be. And so how are we doing that in terms of the team members around the table, in terms of, you know, everything that we do? How can you use the framework to create that sense of inclusion, but how can we also learn about what the framework and tools need to do to improve, to ensure that's not happening? So we're committed to that and want to continue creating spaces for that. And we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know exactly what we need. And again, that's where I rely on you. You are Life Course. You drive it, you support it. You push all of us to make it better, not only for yourselves, but for everybody who can benefit from Life Course. My last commitment is that, and my staff will probably tell you this, I'm committed to always changing and always adapting and always fixing. So no tool is ever done, as they'll tell you. No website is ever finished. We always can get better. And so, you know, we need you to help make us better, and we hope that we're helping make you better. And so it is really, really important that you recognize that the Life Course Nexus, it's a community, and our job is to create space for you so that you can learn and share, and that you have access to the icons and the tools and the branding guides and all the other things that you might be curious about in order to do that. So that is my commitment individually, but as a team and as an organization to you. So with that, I have a few more minutes. I really want to share with you who are awardees this time, but I also want to recognize and kind of tell you about how the next couple months is going to go, and then we will wrap up. Obviously, you're on a monthly live session. It's about an hour, hour and a half, where we're going to dig in deeper. This month was kind of like our keynote, where we were telling you about the Nexus and the tools and the team and all that stuff. But I'm super excited to get into the next couple months. Next month is focusing on education, where the hour and a half live session will bring together experts and leaders and innovators as they are implementing it and integrating it inside the educational system. And it's not just schools. So I hope everybody wants to attend that, because what we're learning inside the schools can be applied to how we support adults with disabilities, the behavioral health community, traumatic brain injury. So we're really super excited about July's live event. Our other events, August will be person-centered outcomes. So really looking at service delivery, really looking at what that looks like for options counselors and case managers and direct support professionals. September is going to focus on how are people using this for organizational change? How are they using Life Course to create staff development, team building, and that organizational concept? October is really focusing on that transition to adulthood and employment and supporting adult life. And then November is really empowering families, and that left off a part of here, I apologize, and individuals. And so we'll be hearing from individuals and families in November and how they're using it, how they're using it in their organizations, but more importantly, how they're using it in their own lives. Every Friday, we will drop on our website and also on Facebook what we are calling our Friday Spotlights, our Friday Features. These are 5 to 10 minute little TED Talks. We hope you send them out to your staff. We hope you connect them on your websites. We just hope that they're little glimpses into some of the breakout sessions that you would have seen in person. And then those same speakers are going to dig in deeper in the actual events that will be happening during the live sessions once a month. I will tell you, we are hosting them on Flipgrid, and this is a platform, so you can click on them anywhere on our Facebook page or our website page. But what we hope that you do is that you actually respond back using Flipgrid, and it's this new way to engage learners and keep the conversation going, especially when you can't be in person. I'm sure many of you are like me and you're like, oh, one more thing. But I will tell you, Jen Randall is our first Flipgrid responder. And so she went on Flipgrid, she did her little video, and she doesn't know this, but she will be receiving a Life Course goodie bag from us, because if you've ever been to our conferences before, we love to hand out goodies, and we have stickers, and we've got notepads, and we have all of that stuff designed with our new icons and logos and different stuff on there. So Jen, thank you for doing that. And I challenge each one of you to respond by Flipgrid. And the first 5 responders, we will get your addresses and we'll send you a Life Course goodie bag. And we're also talking about other ways to get goodie bags out to you guys. So we've even talked about, if you end up hosting your own Facebook party or, hosting whatever, and you're helping us get the word out about these events, we will absolutely find ways to get goodies to you and to those people that you do this for. So this is just kind of a little plug to get things going. The next thing I want to do, though, is I want to move to our Innovation Awards. And this is something that we started last year. And I think that, it's an opportunity for you guys to nominate people who are doing incredible work. But it's also a way for us to acknowledge that we are grateful for the partnership and for the work that you're doing as well. And so we call them our Innovation Awards. So at each of our sessions, we'll be giving an Innovation Award to somebody who has been recognized in a specific area. For this first award, it's our Distinguished Contributor Award. And this is an award that is selected kind of by our team. And this is someone that's been a part of the movement and Life Course for a really long time. And so, this person doesn't know that she's getting this award, but she has been around since the beginning. And she has, Life Course would not be what it is without her today. And so I would like to just tell you that she drives me every single day, really trying to figure out how to make this better for people. And she puts up with me changing colors and letters and changing forms and doing all this stuff. But it all really came from sitting in my office probably 10, 11 years ago and saying, what's the language we should be using to create good lives? And what do we wish we knew that we didn't know as a family member or a parent really growing up? And every single day we would think through this and we would talk about it and we would ask people and we would continue to really challenge ourselves. But the part that's been the most amazing about this person is how she's applied it to her own life, and she's really allowed me to be a part of her life and her family and really think through, does this really work, And so many of you know her as Ben's mom. But this award goes to Jane, and I'd like for her to go in the ottoman behind you. Turn your camera on, and I'd like to give you this award. Obviously, I can't give it to you in person, but Jane has been absolutely amazing. Her growth as a professional in our field, her growth with Life Course, her ability to really stay true to the principles and make sure that we all stay to the principles have just absolutely been amazing, and I couldn't do it without her. So, Jane, I don't know, I can't tell on my screen if you turn your screen on yet, but I need you to turn your video on.
There she is. Call me speechless. Holy crap. Wow. So yeah, I got it on the ottoman. That's so crazy. Oh my God, Shelly, you're, yeah, totally speechless, and I can't get this open.
So it's really hard to do anything by secret with our team because we do everything together. But I kept this one a really big secret, really from the whole team for a long time. So
I'm thinking you might have had some co-conspirators here. I don't know how that got in the ottoman.
so you can thank your son Matt for that. But
Awesome.
Jane, thank you for everything that you've done for Life Course, and we really appreciate it. And I just can't thank you enough. So.
Thank you for putting up with me all these years, and I know I haven't always been easy, so, but I'm blown away. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so next time you will be surprised again who we give our Innovation Award to. Please fill out our surveys. We are going to stay on for a couple minutes. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. Did you like today? Did you learn anything? What did you learn? Give us your feedback. As always, we appreciate our sponsors of our showcase. But again, we hope that this you see that the Life Course is for you, and we're really here to respond to what it is that you need to do the work that you need to do. And so thank you very much.